Hello and welcome. Welcome to another quantum conversation, an opportunity to connect in, tune in, learn, grow, and maybe even perhaps change the direction of your life in the most magnificent way. Today, I am so excited. I am going to officially introduce my guest, and then we're just going to dive right into it. River Roaring has always been paid to keep secrets. I love that, by the way. Years ago, she left her decades-long career as a trial attorney and lobbyist with her own office when she realized that she was no longer in integrity. She realized that she's not here to help people fight, she's here to help people love. I love that, by the way. Ha, no pun intended. Because when we free our sexuality, we free the world. Now, River is one of the top sexologists and most experienced surrogate partners in the United States, providing safe, confidential space for erotic understanding. River, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for shining your light. I know we are in for some fun.
Such an honor to be here with you, beautiful Mark. I'm so grateful to be with you today.
Awesome. I think as I was reading through that, I know one of the questions is going to be, what the heck is a sexologist? Maybe we could just start right there. Let me know, how would you define that?
That's a great question. Sexologist is actually a word that doesn't have like a college degree or a state license going with it. So it's a term of study of sex. The question I get a lot is, what is a surrogate partner?
Mm.
And that is, would you like to know?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is a really exciting career path I've chosen, and it's very rare, and there aren't that many of us in the United States right now, but there are more being trained right now. And it was developed by Masters and Johnson in the 60s, and it's a modality that helps people heal sexually, and it's especially tailored for people who are having a lot of problems getting into an intimate relationship.
Mm.
And so typically what would happen, especially back in that day, is people would go to see a psychotherapist and they'd be talking about their problem, and the psychotherapist would invite them to do different things in the world to get themselves moving forward, and they just couldn't do it. Like maybe the social anxiety is so strong, or maybe there's other preventions, that things that prevent them from getting out, including physical disability. And so a surrogate partner comes in like myself, and we form the triadic model with the client, the psychotherapist, and me.
Hmm.
So every time I work with a client as a surrogate partner, I am working also with their psychotherapist. And every time I see the client, I report back to the psychotherapist and vice versa. So then we're providing like a wraparound care for the client. I become kind of like the touch therapist, with the psychotherapist being the talker. And I actually get into an authentic relationship with the person and show them how to be in relationship from inside the relationship. So we go through all, in Masters and Johnson's days back in the 60s, it was definitely focused more on the physical activity of sex. And
Hmm.
I think that's because if you've seen that show Mad Men, um, people were more focused on that as the quintessential relationship moment, that defines a relationship, including marriage. But nowadays, relationships are so, much more sophisticated than one physical act. So I help people learn emotionally, socially. Sometimes there's hygiene issues, communication, how to enter sacred conflict with a partner, and how to be also in physical relationship with a partner in a loving way that's honoring, and even all the way through to the conscious uncoupling moment, um, and how to transition between partners in a loving way.
Ah, okay. Interesting. And it's such an area, and I don't know, I'd love to get your opinion on this because when we look at sex, when we look at physical intimacy, emotional intimacy, even spiritual intimacy, there's such a stigma that comes up that seems to, like I can hear people giggling. Oh my gosh, sex all, it's like it makes us feel uncomfortable. Or why do you suppose that is? Why do you suppose that this most intimate, powerful type of connection has kind of, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but what kind of came up was like, it's kind of got a bad rap in some ways. It kind of makes us, you know, think like, oh, that's dirty or something like that. I was just kind of curious. I'd love to get your take on that. Why?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, why is that? I'm so happy you brought that up because our sexuality is such a beautiful, beautiful, integral part of our body and ourselves. And you talk about being the composer of our world. And how can I compose my universe without while I ignore that big part of my energy? And also, as inside, so outside.
Mhm.
So, how can I be a fully high vibrational human if I'm ignoring a big part of my energetic self, the sexual self? It's such a gorgeous, natural, and healthy part of us that it's also the most powerful energy that the human body has access to. And I think most of us know that by experience. It's the most powerful physical force we have access to.
Right.
And so, what I think is that because it is so powerful, it's also the number one place that we can be thrown off and get off balance. And when that area is off balance, then it can really make our lives so unhealthy. And that can be off balance by being really shut down and starting to die down out of shame that our culture has brought forward and judgment, which, of course, a big part of my job is helping people let go of that and
Right.
understand that this is a beautiful, natural part of their body and themselves and their beingness. And then also, another manifestation of blocked and imbalanced energies is this kind of like insatiable appetite.
Mm.
And so often that is when a person is searching for a higher vibration to enter sexually and can't get it. And at that point, there's just kind of like a repeat, like trying and trying and trying, but really never hitting that beautiful high vibrational state in sexuality. And so, because it's so powerful, it can take us in a darker direction or a more blocked direction,
Right.
or it can be leveraged as an actual path to the divine. And so it just has that much power, in my view, that it's a natural place for the darker side of the universe to come in and try to mess us up.
Makes
So
sense.
it's
It
kind
makes
of
sense.
like an easy place to go mess people up on.
Right. And if you think about it, not to be a conspiracy theorist or anything, but I believe we get to experience polarities here on this magnificent game board called Planet Earth. You
Yeah.
know, it's almost like I could almost see where there's been a lot of shame injected. There's been through religious traditions, a lot of, oh, perceptions of that. You can only do this when you're married. And if you don't, if you do it outside of marriage, then you're a sinner or whatever, so there's been a lot of negativity that has been injected in. So it sounds to me, if I understand correctly, that in essence, you're kind of like helping people to remove the blocks that are preventing them from really connecting into that innate part of themselves and to really activate that frequency and to start really utilizing it or leveraging it to take their lives in a new direction.
That's exactly right, Mark. And just like you said, we're on this unlimited game board called life. And in this day and time, it's literally expanding so fast, it seems like. And to try to optimize my entire being, to try to optimize my spiritual energy, my power, my vibration.
Right.
Of course, I want to also include and celebrate this part of myself. So that's just part of being a complete human these days. And I'm really into looking at both the spiritual aspects and the non-spiritual aspects of sexuality as well.
Yeah.
Because it's in a sexual experience when, if we're lucky enough to have a high vibration experience, we can touch, in a way, we can touch God. We can
Beautiful. I love that.
experience our own immortality for if even if it's just for a moment. And that's a really important part of life for us.
So, how do you help the person who has experienced sexual trauma where they have such a negative imprint of that aspect because of
Yeah.
experience that had happened in their past? And you could certainly see how that would inhibit them from moving forward and really leveraging this pathway to the divine, as you put it, which I love, by the way. How can you help somebody to let go of the fear, the anger, the resentment, the blockages that show up from really tapping into that power?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Of course, I've been, as I think, yeah, you mentioned in the introduction, I was a trial attorney and a lobbyist for over 20 years with my own office in Austin, Texas here. Um, and I've been doing this professionally for now a dozen years full time. And I've been developing the answer to your question over time.
Okay.
So I will say that there's a lot of work that's done outside of sexuality that's about noticing limiting beliefs and working with ourselves to come out of false limiting beliefs into the deeper truth of ourselves, shedding the old patterns and the shadows from usually how we were raised in to come toward very limiting beliefs. And those include the shame and judgment on sexuality.
Yeah.
So we're really both working with the belief side also that's very important to me, and I've started to notice over all these years that it's very important. It's We're really stuck inside the size of our beliefs, we really living in there, right? So it's very important to work with the belief system and let go of the limiting beliefs. But then the really fun part for me is the body.
Mm.
And when it comes to my body, my vibration, as you know so well, in this, if I pick up the cultural vibration, the dream of the planet vibration, I'm off
Right.
right now, right? So I'm my vibration will be off that way. And so what I do with people is help them get their body into a relaxed, stable vibration through touch.
Okay.
And touch is such a gorgeous and I think sometimes overlooked of our five senses because of all this shame and fear and judgment around sexuality. And even in our culture, one of the things that is not very helpful is that sex and touch are conflated so often. And that's why, I want to say that we need touch. We must have touch. It's an essential nutrient for human beings,
Yeah.
and there have been experiments with animals that have been done quite often that show you can have a baby animal who has all of its food and it's comfortable, it's warm, it's dry, but it will literally die without touch,
Right.
with everything else okay. And sadly, there was an experiment apparently very long time ago in another country with infants that were orphans, and the same thing happened. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's so sad that we've conflated touch and sex in our society so much that school teachers can't touch,
Right.
so many professions can't touch, including most psychotherapists will not touch client. So
Hmm.
you're in there having your biggest emotional experience of all time, and
Right.
they can't simply just hug you or just put a hand on your shoulder for comfort. So what we do, I come back to the beginning with touch, and we want to really get touch. And I'll just give you one beginning step, and it's really a major thing.
Hmm.
Waking the hands. It's such a beautiful practice because it was taught to me by a teacher named Betty Martin, who's pretty famous right now. She's got a book out. She made the Wheel of Consent, which is something I use a lot in my work. But I noticed after I did some research that it was also a Buddhist meditation because Buddhists use five sense meditations.
Okay.
And this is the one for touch. So in waking the hands, I can use any object in the world. This is just my hanky, any object at all. And I want to just lay back and relax and just close my eyes and feel the object
Mm.
and let my hands just sense what's happening in my hands. And because of our culture, so often I work with clients who they can't feel anything at all
Wow.
to start with, nothing at all. And so we start with that because it lacks the intensity of human to human touch. And
Right.
so if I'm just touching an object, I have the luxury of sorting out all of my own things that are going on with my own sensory experience in my body. And I want to start there.
What do you think gets in the way of that? Because it's like we've been like injected into this world where there's so much things coming to us from the outer world. We've got these lovely devices. We're constantly being bombarded that really disconnect us from that. It's like, how can we like take a step away from all that static and noise that we're surrounded by in our modern day world and really sit back and get connected to something as simple as an object in your hands. And if I'm pretty involved with my hands because obviously I play music, so there's little stretching exercises, and I do different pieces. I'm very aware when I'm going through my processes, but it's like probably for most people that might be a stretch. And it's like, how do you deal? And this could be applied to meditation or other things, but let's tie it back to this one exercise. It's like, how do you deal with the resistance to quieting the mind and observing?
That's such a good one. I've also had a number of clients who the mind would not quiet enough for that. It's really just like you would have with any kind of meditation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I do see how I really believe, and it seems like your work is so in line with this, that our world is getting faster and noisier.
Hmm.
And the machines are taking over more and more of our lives if we let them.
Right.
And I would ask if everyone has a relationship with their machines that are truly serving them and for our convenience and my convenience, or am I starting to enter a relationship with my machines where they're a little bit too noisy and
Right.
they've invaded my world and now they're starting to define my universe around me with especially just sound and the words that come to me and the pictures I see all day long.
Yeah.
So we do need to be motivated to find the quiet and to become that quiet, still person. I have a very strong belief that this noisy, more fast world is just one dynamic that's happening, right? And so I think we all know some. I mean, I think you're a great example of someone who, no matter how fast the world gets, no matter how noisy it gets, I think Mark is going to be sitting here in a still, quiet place, really just with high vibration sound and steady. And for all the people who want that in their lives, for all the people who want to seek that place of peace and relaxation, even as everything else gets noisier and louder, without regard to that, I think that it's the people who are seeking that that are really the motivated ones to find these deeper places inside. And I'm pretty sure not everyone will do it. Maybe I could be wrong. I don't want to be limiting in my
Right.
beliefs.
Right. Well, that brings up an interesting point because I think for some people, and I can even think of in my own journey in taking the time to meditate and taking the time to do yoga. And I love to make yoga a very mindful process as opposed to just physical motion. You know, there's a resistance that shows up. It's almost like the mind, ego, whatever you want to call it, says, yeah, I don't want to go there. I like the noise because it keeps
Yeah.
me distracted. It keeps me safe. It keeps me detached. How do we work through some of those inner resistances? I think we all have at one time or another over the course of our evolution
Yeah.
that prevent us from really being mindful. And even as something as your analogy, having the handkerchief and just feeling it in your hands and observing, oh, I just got a text, oh, squirrel, and totally distracted. It's like, how do we, Why do we have that resistance to connecting into that own intimacy with ourselves?
We do have that. That's for sure. I have it too, but what I've noticed is after a certain amount of time of being out there in all the noise, I feel shitty, to be honest. My body, when I come back here. And so this is the other really cool thing about my field, Mark. It's sex. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really why it has such high energy for us is because it gives us a way to experience ourselves at such blissful levels if we will go there. If we will allow my body to go to these magic, both relaxed and blissful moments of time where
Mm,
we really bring in the grounded peace and relaxation, and we add in what can become higher and higher levels of bliss inside that relaxed container,
yeah.
and how big we can become and how high vibration we can become. And this is what I believe we're actually here for. And I see this only sex as only one example of how we are magic. We are magic, immortal light beings here on earth. And we have a chance to experience those things while we're here. And
Yes.
it's not when we let everyone else dictate the noise that comes into us. And like I said, I think some people will probably never be attracted to optimize all their vibrational energies. But those of us who do are actually forging in new territory nowadays,
Mm,
right? Because actually, sexuality has been shut down in a lot of places on earth for a lot of parts of history. In a really weird way. Like even in India, where Tantra was originated, you go there now, and if you have sex with the wrong person, you're in prison. And it's like it's not like that anymore over there, in at least in many places.
right.
Um, so we have so much shut down around our sexuality and history, but we have an opportunity right now. I see both you and I as so privileged. I see myself as the most privileged person who's ever walked Earth because I am in a female body. I have a mixed color skin. I think I'm like walk the middle of it. And I think that also I am an independent woman who gets to say what she wants. How rare is that in human history that we know of,
That's
right?
so cool. Yeah, absolutely.
And so we have a chance to expand, you, I, and every viewer who's listening here. We all have a chance to expand to heights that no human that we know of has maybe ever seen before. And there are some people who want to do that in their lives.
Yeah. No, I think it's fantastic. And you really don't hear a lot about sexuality being a pathway to the divine.
Mm.
I mean, I've heard of it in pieces here and there, but it's not something that I would call like a societal norm that you're going to see broadcasted on one of the main, network channels or social media or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
And
because we're blocked if we say it.
well, yeah, absolutely. And let's face it, that's part of it. But I remember years ago, and I'm curious to get your take on this. I can't think of the author's name. I'm pretty sure the name of the book was called Bringers of the Dawn, and it was a channeled piece from the Pleiadians. Whether you believe in star people or whatever, that's your deal. But I just like to read the information. And it talked about sexuality and the power of sexuality, the power and the energy of orgasm, and how it could dramatically enhance your projections into the field to manifest and to create in the more, pleasurable way, but in
Yeah,
a very powerful way. Do you see that as opening a door to dramatically shifting our ability to compose the life of our dreams?
I sure do. We are truly composers. Um, you know what? There are so many levels that works at. Where our sexuality is literally a doorway or a path to the divine, to the infinite.
Right.
And I'll just mention one that's a little more esoteric. Are you interested?
Yeah, go for it.
I am a Toltec. I started studying in 2006 with Heather Ashamara and Raven Smith in the Eagle Knight lineage, and I've apprenticed for many years there. In Toltec, there's something called sex dreaming.
Mm.
And what we're doing there is, because the sexual energy is such a powerful force in my body, I can raise it. And to raise my sexual energy is to raise my own energy to the highest level. And in this place is where I'm more able to go into my astral body and to go and actually play with other people in the astral realms.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so it's actually, I can use the sexual energy in my own body to raise my overall energy, and then start to eventually see and play with my energetic body. And that can eventually play with other people's energetic bodies. So
Yeah.
some people are talking about this in other spiritual contexts without adding the sex to it. So we have a lot, we have, astral travel is a thing in the world of spiritual teaching, but not as often do you hear that when I can add in my sexual potent power, it's easier to travel astrally.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
We all have access to this portal, this gateway. And, we were talking earlier about some of the traumas or negative experiences that we've had that can inhibit that. But also, I think, yes, society throws out, but I want to move beyond just like what religion, let's say, for example, has put out into the space. There's also this thing, whether, you could call it the porn industry, where we've kind of like just
Yeah.
kind of taken the sacredness out of the connection, out of touching, out of intimacy. It's like, how do we move through that? Because I think it impacts, there's a reason, like, that's one of the most popular websites in the whole freaking world is a porn site. Why is that? And I think you might have even touched on it a little bit ago, that we're trying to access a frequency or a state of being, but we just don't know how to get there. But how do we move beyond some of those, I don't know, societal pieces or things that have kind of been injected into the mass consciousness?
Yeah, of course. I'm going to go back to sex dreaming for a second, although
Okay.
all the answers aren't in that one tradition. But with sex dreaming, the way Toltecs teach this is there's actually no vaginal penetration. So the reason for that is because my womb is my most important sensing organ of my body. It is a very magical place in my body. And once that is penetrated by another human, there's going to be, even in the Tao, they say amplifies and binds. We are going to have a connection there. Once that established in my womb area, we're going
Mhm.
to have a connection that is going to be very strong. And I might not want that with everybody in the bar that night,
Right. Right.
right? So
Yep.
people are out drinking or out doing, right now it's the dating app hookups. And I have no judgment on this. I'm all about just whatever the person's doing, like that's their path. And when we're out there so quickly getting into that very deep, it's really a spiritual connection with the other person, and we don't know them that well. Where does that leave us? That could be some loser that we don't like at all. Their energy could be so negative. They could be so full of drama, and we're now attached in a certain way. So I will say that in Toltec sex dreaming, what they talk about is getting together to raise sexual energy, but don't do that one act until you're in a committed relationship that you're basically willing to commit to forever, because you're going to fly together to new heights because you have found a high vibrational partner who wants to fly with you forever. And we can still, in this one model, the one model, which is Toltec dreaming, which there are many models, but this is a great example of an answer, because in this model, I can play with sexually anyone.
Hmm.
but I don't want to go into that act with anyone.
Right.
And what we're doing in our world right now is going into every act known to, that bodies can get into with no discretion
Mm.
of who that is with. And that can further block our sexual energy to just be so quickly entangled.
Yeah.
Right. So even it's advised for young people who are starting to open up sexually, start with sex dreaming. It's really fun. It's amazing. Energetically having sex is really quite amazing. And it lets us experiment and play without, I guess the porn industry has kind of um, just lost its way. And as a result, so many people are connecting with one another in deep, profound spiritual ways they don't really understand and they weren't ready for.
Right.
And so everything's going haywire. I often think of the sexual revolution of the 70s when the birth control pill came in and divorce came in.
Yeah.
And I see the benefits of it, but what I look at myself is, I think it was because I was a family law attorney for 20 years. We didn't think of the children.
Mm.
And, there was this whole sexual freedom movement where I get to do whatever I want. But we never literally, like, there's no factoring in and discussion of children. And they have just, therefore, not been conceived with the full planning and honor and sacredness that being's life deserved. Not
Right.
that that's, we'll all move through that. We all have challenges and we're here in these crazy times to get past anything that happened, but we're encouraged these days in the United States to mate prematurely.
Right. Interesting. I'm kind of curious because the other side of that I could see is, and I certainly have met couples that have been together for a long time and they've lost the fireworks. They've lost the,
Yeah.
the connection. They've lost that, and it's like, what can those people, what the people that have been in relationship with somebody for a long period of time, what can they do to begin to reactivate some of that energy, some of that frequency, some of that connection that perhaps maybe over time, if it ever was there to begin in the first place,
Yeah.
can be, kind of reignited.
That I love working with couples. I mean, seeing a couple who are committed but have lost that spark. That's so common today. That's
Right.
very common. And I think it's so common because there's just simply lack of information. I think that everyone would like to stay magic together.
Yeah.
And so I just love that one. And we do start with the same practice because what we want to do with this one is, for me, it's very much about each individual person waking their body back up
Oh, okay.
first so
Yeah.
that I'm fully in my body and I understand the pleasure that's capacity that I have. And that I want to go engage with this other person who's in their pleasure capacity. And it kind of reminds me of something you had said earlier. How do we lose this sense of touch and this sense? And I'd love to say a couple of words about that. It kind of factors into this, what I see with couples. May I say that?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to ask permission, man. You just go
Okay.
ahead and speak your truth, and we're
Okay.
good.
All right, Mark. This is really one of my most favorite lessons. I usually draw it out, but I just want to say that inside my body, I have a direct route of sensation from the nerve endings here in my hand through my arm to my brain. There's a neural connection, right? So that when I touch something, it registers. This is what I call the direct route of pleasure.
Mm,
Okay. And so this is a beautiful magic way to have pleasure, feeling it. And that's what I'm waking up when I wake my hands, because
right.
these nerve endings have largely been deadened by us only using our hands as tools rather than the magic pleasure sensors that they are.
Got it. Got it.
So and then here's the part is when I am born, This is a very natural connection that's linked up with my nerve endings, all linked up, and I'm touching everything. And I'm the 1-year-old with the birthday cake all over my body because everything's touchable, and I'm touching your hair and your teeth and your mouth. But then there are so many things in our culture, be it the porn rude awakening, but which small children have access to now,
Mhm.
or be it the religion and the slap on the wrist in Catholic school, or
Right.
be it the assault and injury and abuse, whatever they are, or even when I'm a tiny infant, my parents move me around without me. They touch me in ways I didn't want, which is awesome because they need to, because I need to feed me. And even in the most healthy, loving relationship, my body's moved around in ways I didn't ask for, which is
Right.
fine. But no one ever comes back around and shows us that now we get to enter a choice realm when we're an adult. And so, as adults, many of us continue to think we have to accept the touch that happens because it's deep, pre verbally trained in my body that, oh, when people touch me, I'll just live with it.
Right.
But so, number one, I've got this, a lot of things are basically cutting off my direct route as I grow up and experience shame or abuse. And it's not as safe for me to be feeling everything.
Right.
And that's really where a lot of us are now living. And
Mm.
so what happens is there's another way to get pleasure, which is I see my partner moaning and groaning when I touch them, and it makes me feel happy. Or like I see them smile. And so that's a way of getting pleasure from what I'm seeing and experiencing into my brain. We call that the indirect route of pleasure. So it's
Okay.
not through my body, it's something out there going, oh, I love that.
Right.
So that's a beautiful way of adding pleasure. But without this one, most adults in our culture who haven't had training are only able to get pleasure indirect. So I've got this turned off now because of all those shaming things and the injuries and all that stuff. And now I just want you to moan for me. And now I want to find the buttons on your body that make you go, "Ooh, thank you. I love that." And I'm just going to go back to those buttons every time, because I want the pleasure that I get that way. I think that's what porn is, just like show me something cool instead of me feeling and sensing something cool.
That's beautiful.
Right. So then the indirect pleasure is a beautiful way of having pleasure. The only problem is that if it's my only way,
Right.
then my relationships become performative. My sex is goal oriented by definition.
Mhm.
I might become needy because now I can't get pleasure on my own. I have to have you and you have to moan. And
Right.
so then we also can start having resentment because you probably start noticing that I need something from you when we get together to touch.
Yeah.
And there may turn into manipulation and inauthenticity, and it goes on and on and on. And I told you this long story because this is a story I often see with longtime couples.
Got it. How interesting. I think also we're, in talking about societal things, is like men seem to be more orgasm centered, the end result thing, and women seem to be more about connection and bonding and intimacy in that way. So we have kind of like these two different polarities, so to speak,
Polarities.
of sexuality. How do you meld those? And I
Mm.
love the aspect of touching and incorporating and bringing that in. That's beautiful. Any other suggestions?
Yes, believe me, I have a billion.
I
It's
bet.
my
Well,
favorite
maybe just go
subject.
with your top one.
This is my top one. This is my top one. The First of all, there is an extensive process with some very simple practices I lead people through to both get in this body and get this turned back on, and
Yeah.
then also how to interact with another person and touch in really clear ways so that one person is asking for what they want
Mm,
and the other person is checking in to see if they want to give, if they're willing with an open heart to give that gift before they give it. and the giver can stop any time that their heart is no longer open. So
Right.
then the person getting what they want knows that the other one is giving in an open-hearted way. They don't have to caretake them, and they can just ask for what they want and jump into their desire. But with this polarity question, most beautiful part is that with the things you have more of, I have less of, and there are things I have more of, you have less of. When we unite in a high vibration way, I give you some of mine and I get some of yours. And literally, we balance our polarities, which is one of the most beautiful spiritual practices there is.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I've never heard that before. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Love that. Sign me up.
Come on
So,
out, Mark.
yeah, I know. It's so intriguing. In fact, it's so funny because I told my wife Lara that I was going to be doing this interview. She, oh, I want to listen to that one, So I see
Come on out to my weekend workshop,
you've
my
already got
darling.
a
I'd
fan.
love
Well,
it.
that's what I wanted to ask you. So, how do you work with people? Obviously, we talked a little about your weekend workshop, you know, maybe
Yeah,
perhaps share a little bit and put it out there. So how do you express
thank you.
how do you open up all these pathways and reconnect people and get people back in touch with themselves and touch with others? So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your weekend workshop.
Thank you, Mark. I feel like I could talk to you for a day or two or three. It's awesome talking
Absolutely.
with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the weekend. So I've always worked with people in person to date. Maybe I'll do an online thing. I'm an aspiring person to do something online, but it's all in person. And so level one is my weekend workshop.
Okay.
And we have one coming up May 17 to 19, and then the next one will be in July in here in Austin, Texas. It's a small group, and I will gently guide you exactly through these practices so that your body can wake up.
Mm.
And also, there will be other people, and you're invited in if you want to try touching others in very guided, very gentle, simple practices. So we actually start, and when we once I wake my body up a bit myself and have some learnings there, then when I reach out to touch another, we start with just the hand, because all those crazy dynamics that come in when I touch someone else happen when I just go like this. Right?
Yeah, I
So
could see
we go
that.
through simple, gradual practices and start very gently raising the intensity level a little bit by little bit, if you want to, through the weekend.
Mhm.
So by the end of the weekend, we still have all of our clothes on, and we do not do any genital touch inside this weekend practice. But the weekend will really wake you up. And what I love to say is, I've got 55 years of noise up here, but I have 4 billion years of wisdom down here.
Oh, beautiful.
I've got the secrets of all of life on earth in every cell in my body. And once I drop down in there, I'm actually in 4 billion years of wisdom. And I'm able to go forward and ask for what I want from that place, from my primal purpose. And I'm able to say, no, I don't want that, from my primal purpose. And that's how I then go into the bedroom eventually with my mate.
Ah, that's awesome. That is amazing. And I loved it. I've learned so much today about this pathway, about this, because, as we mentioned earlier, I don't think, for many of us, we don't really look at the spiritual pathway that intimacy and touch and connection can open up to. And what I really get a sense from an intuitive level is that it's going to give you access to a tremendous amount of power and healing and moving beyond old stories and old paradigms that we've all been imprinted with to one degree or another. And I could really see how it could be such a tremendous assistance in this ascension of consciousness, in this awakening of humanity, and ultimately the revealing of the divine potential that's within each and every one of us. So I love it. And you're right, we could just keep on and going on down this pathway forever. So I want to invite you to go and check out what River's doing. Check out the workshop. There is a link in the bio or in the summary here. go click on it, go explore it. If it resonates with you and you really want to open up to that aspect of who and what you are, I highly encourage you to explore the possibilities. She was even kind enough to generate a code for us for $100 or 10% discount, sorry, 10% discount on the program itself if you feel called. She even used a cool code name, Harmonize. It doesn't get much better than that in my book. So I invite you to go check that out. Reach out if you have any questions. River is an amazing power, an amazing force, and obviously with 4 billion years of information and wisdom all in that area, she's plugged in, tapped in ways that we just scratched the surface in our time together today. But I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your wisdom, especially in an area where sometimes it can, bring up our defenses or make us wary or whatever. And you just presented such a beautiful, natural, and loving way. And I want to commend you for that. So it has been an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for being my guest. Thank you so much for this conversation. And once again, if you're interested in learning more, I invite you to look in the information in the description and go from there. So, River, any last parting words of 4 billion years of information that you would like to share with us? No pressure, right?
Yeah, none at all. Well, if someone doesn't feel like coming all the way to Austin, Texas, just jump on my email list and we'll stay in touch and we'll find some way to work together. But the last thing I really want to say is your sexuality is your beautiful treasure. And if you embody the earth, the heavens will chase you.
Ooh, I like that. All right, that's good. You did not disappoint at all. So thank you once again. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to tune in. Have a harmonious day. Go play your music. Go unfold and reveal more of the awesomeness that's within you and shine. So thank you so much. Take care and have a harmonious day.